We must put forth effort to become skilled at contemplation in our practice, looking at the elements of our body and mind. And we have to give a great deal of time to this practice of contemplation, developing wisdom.
Extreme right पे
We must constantly apply effort to restrain the chitta or mind.
कुछ कह रहे हैं रिंदर जी, कुछ कह रहे हैं आप?
मैंने कहा मेरा जो राइट है स्क्रीन पे उस पे एक आइकॉन है ना, उसको प्रेस करेंगे तो फुल स्क्रीन हो जाएगा.
हाँ, अभी ये सिनेमा मोड करके मैंने लगाया, इसको फुल स्क्रीन कर दूं मैं? ठीक है.
हाँ
ठीक है.
ठीक है.
From following after the various moods and emotions which arise as we sit. And this restraint over time leads to a strengthening of the chitta and mindfulness, which in turn causes samadhi or lucid calm to arise and grow stronger. Initially, the level of samadhi we can expect is what's referred to as khanika, or momentary concentration, a brief period when the mind has become still.
रिंदर जी, इसको ना मैं सिनेमा मोड में ही रखता हूँ, सो दैट हम नीचे के इसको मैं देख पा रहा हूँ, और इसमें कोई वीडियो नहीं है, तो आपने सुनना ही है हम सब ने इसको.
But as we practice more, we might find that the level of calm we're reaching is lasting for much longer periods, in which case we can deduce that we've come to upachara samadhi, or what's called neighborhood concentration. And in this case, the sense of calm can remain even after we've gotten up from our formal sitting. We may find that our mind is very calm as we sit or walk after a formal session. However, in the beginning, we can expect, after experiencing such calm, for the chitta or mind to back out and once again become restless, following the various moods and emotions which come to it, in which case we have to once again establish mindfulness or sati and restrain it using the 4 satipatthana, or foundations of mindfulness, as our themes of calm and our anchors for the mind or chitta. And this will lead to our samadhi becoming more and more solid. It's up to our paramitas, or spiritual perfections, how fast this progression might occur to the point where we are able to attain and become fluent in the practice of samadhi. For some, it'll be 4 years, others 5, others a few, just a single year even. It's unsure and up to each individual. What we do know is that we have to put in the causes for this development. We have to practice. And if we do put in our effort continuously over a long period of time, we can expect to begin attaining even more profound states of calm. For example, apana samadhi, or one-pointed concentration, when the mind is gathered into a deep calm, even more profound and subtle than that of neighborhood or upachara samadhi. When the mind gathers into such calm, the 5 samadhi factors, vitaka, vichara, directed and sustained thought, piti, sukha, rapture and pleasure, and finally ekagata, or one-pointedness of mind, will gather together, and the chitta will be imbued with all of them. When the mind has achieved this sort of calm, it doesn't want to think. Thoughts will naturally not arise because it's so content to rest in the state of lucid calm which it's attained. It's still. However, after a period of time, the mind will have felt as if it's been still for long enough, and it will back out and begin to move again. Thought will arise. At this point, we should turn this newly powerful and refreshed mind and awareness to contemplate and look at the body as anicca, dukkha, and anatta, impermanent, suffering, and not self. And this will lead to the chitta gaining wisdom when it sees the body as not a self. Similarly, this strengthened chitta or mind will perceive other elements as not self as well. For example, if it turns towards the second foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of Vedana or feeling, it will also perceive it as not self and will separate out from it. Initially, this is difficult, but over time we'll become more and more skilled to the point where we can sit and walk and enter states of khanika or momentary concentration. And then when we sit in formal practice, we can expect to attain upachara or neighborhood concentration. Then, as we become even more skilled and fluent in this practice of samadhi, we may find that we are able to maintain this same measure of calm, upachara samadhi, in all of our postures, and that when we sit formal practice, appana samadhi, or an even deeper level, arises. The practice circles like this. We attain a level of samadhi, we contemplate, and then the contemplation prepares the minds for even more profound states of samadhi during the mind's next descent into calm. And the fruits of such calm stay with the mind and body for long periods after the sitting is ended. We may find that in our daily lives, our mind and body feel light and even feel as if the mind is separating out a bit from the body due to the power of our concentration. When the mind is imbued with such calm, it wakes up. Piti, rapture, sati, mindfulness, samadhi, concentration, all the bojjhanga, or the 7 factors of awakening, are present and powerful. And when we practice with this mindfulness continuously, we begin to grow more and more skilled at bringing the mind to calm, and also at seeing the body as impermanent, not self, and suffering. And once again, such insight leads to even deeper states of samadhi. Even if we don't do anything special, still, if we keep this practice up, then especially if we've already attained the fruits of upachara or neighborhood concentration, then the mind and body will be imbued with this sense of well-being from samadhi on a continuous basis. And when we're calm in this way, there's less need to protect and restrain forcibly the mind. It likes to stay still after it's tasted what joy such stillness provides, what well-being samadhi can give it. And we may find that it grows calmer and calmer until it can achieve no deeper state of calm. It feels as if it's completely full and there's no empty space, it's tight. Our samadhi has reached its limit. When this happens, once again, we should turn it towards contemplating the body. And this same way of practice, circling around, leads to great fruit. However, we also may find that we're in a place where we can use our samatha practice or our samadhi practice of the parikama, the single meditation object, to bring the mind to deeper states of calm if it's not yet reached its limit. We may use the meditation word Buddho to quiet the mind, or likewise with the breath. And as we become more and more skilled at such, then we'll be able to cross over the various moods and mental impressions which arise in the mind, not getting caught in them and not identifying with them. We will transcend the hindrances that keep the mind in bondage. When the mind has achieved these deeper states of concentration, such as upachara, neighborhood, or apana, singleness of mind, then when we do turn it to contemplate the body or reality, then an awakening experience can occur quickly, within 3 days, even 2 days. Seeing the Dhamma with a mind imbued with such calm is not difficult. However, many of us may not yet have such a level of samadhi, but being people in the modern world, we may have quite a good deal of wisdom. And in this case, we should utilize the strength that we do have and contemplate regularly every day. We can still use the faculty of wisdom to contemplate skillfully. So these are the two ways that practice can function. Either we use our wisdom quality to develop samadhi, or we use our samadhi practice to develop wisdom. As I stated above, the practice of contemplating the body prepares the mind for deeper states of concentration. But similarly, by bringing the mind one time and again to its meditation objects and calming it, we pave the way for deeper and more profound wisdom to arise. This is the path of sila, morality, samadhi, and panya, or wisdom. We may find that if we have a lot of work or duties, bringing the mind to such states of refined calm is very difficult. In this case, we can look directly at the experience of this, and we can maintain a constant mindfulness of the chitta itself, the third foundation, looking at how it's affected by the daily activities. We can endeavor to keep a consistent level of mindfulness on our meditation object or parikama, For example, the meditation word Buddha or Buddho. And if we can maintain our meditation word or our other meditation object in all postures, this will help us a great deal. The lineage of Longpo Mun, the preeminent and most famous of the Kruba Ajahns of this last century, stressed and emphasized the practice of samadhi constantly. It's our way of making the chitta, or mind, quiet. And even if we have other work, the great teachers advised us to constantly keep the practice in mind as much as we were able. Similarly, we have to use wisdom to know how to keep our practice going in the midst of daily life. Many people will have to contemplate first, and only after preparing the mind will they be able to achieve these deeper states. Once they find calm, they'll see through the body, and this will help samadhi arise at even deeper levels. However, others have a different situation and find that their wisdom faculty is the one that they must develop first. And from this, wisdom leads to greater states of calm. We have to look at the body. And I myself, when I had found some level of calm, thought that the mind was powerful enough to move straight to looking at the mind itself. But Longpo Cha advised me time and again that I should turn it back to the body. And initially I was reluctant to do this. I wanted to move to look at the mind directly and quickly. But when I did, my samadhi deteriorated very quickly to the point where it seemed as if I'd never practiced almost. The liking and disliking, the getting lost in various moods and emotions all came back. And if one experiences such deterioration in their calm, they may think that their practice has completely disappeared. However, in such a situation, one should maintain one's mindfulness and effort, putting forth and endeavoring to keep the practice going. And when samadhi does return, it'll be even deeper than it initially was. This is natural. Samadhi will become full, become deep enough that we can go no deeper, and then it will back up, and the mind will extract itself and come close to a normal state again. But in such a case, we simply repeat the process and will go deeper and deeper each time. This is patient endurance at work, and it's an extremely important quality in this context of samadhi practice. So all of this is up to our paramitas, our spiritual perfections. All of them help us, this helps us understand the Dhamma. And this developing of samadhi is essential. It's something we have to think about and figure out how to cultivate well. When we learn to see the chitta better, we will gain the ability to move past Vedana or painful feeling if we want. And the mind will have the capability of pulling away from painful feeling, not getting lost and overwhelmed by it. It will have the power to fight against the painful feelings that arise in practice. And this is the practice of the Satipatthana. So I hope all those present endeavor to cultivate the practice in this way and take this as an encouragement towards putting forth effort to achieve the states of calm I've spoken of and of liberation.
So this was the video. अगर इसमें कोई प्रश्न हो तो विशाल जी उपस्थित है आपको.
It is excellent. Only thing is I need to hear it several times to fully absorb some of the points. So
मेरे को सर आप पहले बता दीजिए फिर मैं मेरा एक प्रश्न था पूछ लेता हूँ.
आप पूछ लीजिए उसके बाद कुछ तो क्या नहीं.
ओके सर, थैंक यू. इसमें जो लास्ट में बताया गया कि बार बार अजान शाह ने उनको सजेस्ट किया कि बॉडी कॉन्टेम्पलेशन पर वापस आ जाओ, क्योंकि जैसे इन्होंने चित्ता पर ध्यान लगाया तो वो उनको लगा कि उनकी समाधि जैसे कभी लगी ही नहीं थी. तो वो पॉइंट क्या था? तो मैं क्लियर सब व्हाई द स्ट्रेस इज मोर ऑन बॉडी कॉन्टेम्पलेशन.
Yes, Nikhilji, there was in the last talk that we had with Ajahn Tan, also, if you may recollect, he had talked about the three portions of attachment to the body. And so basically what in this talk Ajahn Anand was talking about, and I think we had also talked about this in a prior discussion, is that the path of going through the first stages of awakening go through the working with the body and the attachment to the body. So what he was referring to in this talk is the same thing, that once we have attained a level of samadhi, there is a sense, as he describes, that one can just look at our attachment to our nama components directly. So, nama rupa is the body and all the other feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, and consciousness. So as we've talked about the khandas, the five khandas, broadly, that's how they would break up into nama rupa with some slight nomenclature issues. But so he was describing how there's a tendency early on to feel that one has achieved the state of stillness, the samadhi, and it's a very peaceful, sublime feeling, and one doesn't want to deal with the body, which seems sort of like gross and not necessary. But what he describes is that at that stage, that, as I understand it, the mind is still very attached to the body. The mind stays attached to the body till the level of anagami. In certain, so obviously after Sotapanna, they say that, you get Sakaya Ditthis drop, but there's still attachment to the body because of the desire for sensuality and things like that. So he's basically just talking about that when you work with the body at these early levels, then that leads to small awakening experiences, as he describes, that then lead the mind to become even more quiet, because the mind then sees or can see how the body isn't self. So when that realization happens, then the mind becomes even more quiet and rapturous, and then the samadhi becomes deeper. But at that early stage, the mind is not yet ready to just look at the mind, because it hasn't gone through the preliminary purifications yet. I don't know, does that sort of make sense? That's how the Kuba Ajahns describe it.
I think Nikhil will have to say whether it makes sense, but to me it does.
Nikhilji?
Yeah.
Also, if I remember, in one of the suttas, Bhagwan has probably even said that mindfulness of the body alone is sufficient. In some sense, in some context, he has said that.
Yes, the Kaya Gati Sati Sutta. That's right. And multiple other places too, of course.
And this body contemplation means like हमें sensation को देखना है या हमारे को जो हमारे अंदर formations हो रहे हैं, okay, this is our sanya, okay, this is our thought, or we need to focus on the sensation part in the body.
In the talk last time, Ajahn Tan had described quite well. So body contemplation can be done in a few different ways, as I understand it. You can look at the 32 parts of the body. The idea is, so 32 parts of the body, or you can look at the elements that compose the body is composed of, or one can look at the foul or asubha contemplation of the body, where you can imagine or visualize your body lying like one day dead, or 7 days of death. So all the different stages of decomposition. The idea is to see the body as it is, made up of these pieces, these biological components, these organs, and therefore then to have a realization of not self, anatta, like this body is not me, and that therefore then the mind lets go of the attachment to the body to the first level. So yeah, so the way one actually does it, as I understand it, is to visualize. If you were to visualize yourself sitting there, you could imagine all of the components of the body, like you strip the skin off, and what do you see? And then you strip the muscles off, and then you see the bones, and then you go into the chest, you open the chest, you look at all the organs, the heart beating, the blood going, and then you go down and you look at the abdomen, all the bowels, the feces, the food. And then so in a way, it's like almost like you challenge your own understanding, or your own illusion or image of who you are. So then you say, like, is this bowel, is that me? Or is this heart me? Like where in this is Nikhilji, like, so in a way, it's a challenge to the mind's conventional way of imagining what this body is. And you just work with that. And as I think in the last talk, Ajahn Tan had talked about, he said, you do this contemplation not once, not twice, but multiple times, all the time, every day, multiple days. And the idea is to make the mind see that this body is just made up of these organs. And other than these organs, there is no nikhil in there, or there is no person. And then when the mind sees that and accepts that, then the mind can become even more calm and peaceful, and they can be more rapture, and then the mind goes into a deeper state of samadhi, as Ajahn Anand just described. And then you continue that process, and then the next stage of samadhi, then as you get deeper, as the mind comes out of the samadhi, then you contemplate the body again, and then the mind may again go further into more stillness. So this is the process that the Kuba and Jads have described. That's how I understand it.
And suppose, the mind is caught up with some thought, some sort of, let's say, ideology or somewhere, and it is not able to come back to the body. So can we just see, okay, I am different and this thought is different, rather than thinking of the body? Because mind is not just coming back, mind is just stuck there. You are not able to, invert the lens towards itself. It is somewhere looking at that particular thinking or something.
Yeah.
What happens?
If the mind, as I understand it, if the mind that you are using to contemplate the body gets lost in thought, then that means that you have to strengthen your samadhi more. So then you drop, if you notice that instead of the mind contemplating the body and having the arising of wisdom is not occurring, instead the mind is getting caught up in some tangential thinking, then we come back to our object of samadhi and strengthen our samadhi. And then once the samadhi is strengthened, then one can attempt it again. And this is sort of you develop these skillful means within your own practice. You figure out what works and what doesn't work, and it's all trial and error. The practice, as I understand it, is defined by the teachers, but then everybody has to find their own path, even through the practice. So what might work for one person may not work for another person. But the general guidelines are how they are described here.
So
I have something to share.
Yes.
Yeah, Namaste Bantaji. Yeah, what I understood with Ajahn Anand's discourse today, it's like we sit for the meditation, taking some object or as a mindfulness, we go through our body or whatever we contemplate. So after that, once we wake up, we're gone, like our samadhi is over. It is what Vishalji said is like, we should contemplate on 30 to 38 parts of the body, Ashubhanusati. But in day-to-day life, we can't do this. So what I understood is, so whatever we are doing, it's something like, see, so I should start cooking now. Maybe another 10 minutes I should start. So I do my samadhi with cooking. So with mindfulness. So it's something like I keep an object like, say, I'm touching the vegetable, I be inside. So, object, it can be breath or any part of the body, a feeling. So in day-to-day life, I think what I understood is we can do like this, being within. So, mind doesn't stay inside the body. So we should get it back like again and again. So then we do our day-to-day life things. So something like folding the bed sheet. So feel the bed sheet. It's something like that. That's it. That is what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aditi. That's also helpful. One thing I wanted to ask Vishalji, as you said, then I need to strengthen my samadhi if I'm stuck with the thoughts. So in this context, would you like to put more light? What are the kushal upayas for strengthening the samadhi? Like in this video, they said I can focus on Buddha or something, or how to strengthen the samadhi? Very common question, but I think it would be helpful.
Yes, and I would just quickly say to Aditi Ji's comment that yes, the practice that Ajahn Anand has described here, most of it is a formal practice, as in the practice of developing upachara samadhi or appana samadhi. So those states, appana samadhi is not possible when we're in our day-to-day life, and upachara samadhi in day-to-day activity is not always accessible to everybody. But absolutely, what Aditi Ji said is right, that when we are in informal mode, as in we're not sitting on a cushion, then to keep the mind centered is the practice. And I think in this talk, Ajahn Anand described it, and also in Ajahn Tan's talk last time, is that we keep the mind centered, and that, as she said, keeping the mind from getting lost in thought, we keep it focused to the work we're doing or the sensations, or we can even just watch the mind and keep it centered is the right approach, as I understand it. And then when we've done that all day, then the mind stays quite still, even though we're doing our day-to-day activity. The mind is not distracted or caught up in emotions or reactions. And so then when we do sit for formal practice, which is on the cushion or still, then the arising of samadhi, like upachara or other states of samadhi, will be easier because the mind is already still all day. And to the question that you asked, Nikhilji, there are certain antidotes. So it depends, like if the mind is thinking and the thoughts are related to like a passion or lust, then one can look at asubha and try to break that. If the thoughts are related to anger or aversion, then we can do metta meditation. So there's different antidotes that the Buddha has described. But if it's just sort of like just thinking, just like restless thinking, then basically they talk about doing the opposite, which is actually using your sati and your effort to still the mind and not let it just go away. So if our sati is strong enough, we can bring the mind to a center. But some things that work for me is that if the mind is really, really troubled by something, then using the Buddha or some mantra, and I think in one talk Ajahn Anan or Ajahn Tan has talked about it, just repeating it very, very quickly, like very rapidly, Buddha, 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 so that the mind doesn't have the ability to attach to your thought. It's because the mind attaches to the thought that it generates more thinking. So we can break that by chanting very, very quickly to break that. Then that can be an effective strategy. Sometimes it could be effective if you want to do walking meditation instead of sitting. But again, it's dependent on what the content of the thinking is, oftentimes. I hope that answers that to some degree.
Yes.
Well, can you elaborate a little bit on the role of apna samadhi stage in this entire process? Because only briefly it is referred to in the talk.
Yeah. So as I understand it, in the nomenclature of the Thai Kuba Ajahns, apana samadhi, I've heard it described as in the context of the suttas in two ways. I've heard teachers say, yes, apana samadhi could be considered equivalent to jhana, but then I've also heard teachers say apana samadhi is separate from jhana. But I have heard, and I'm sure Bhanteji could probably attest to this too, and in this talk also, Ajahn Anan talks about the importance of upachara samadhi, because he says that if you attain upachara samadhi, you sort of have stabilized your mind to a certain degree, and your practice will progress naturally as you keep applying effort. I have heard even from Ajahn Tan very, very clearly and without any ambiguity that the upachara state is sufficient to attain to the first level of awakening. So I think that in terms of whether apana is necessary, there's many teachers have said no. Whether apana leads to a state of calm abiding, it's a state that the mind can rest in, based on what the teachers say that is the case. But I would say, based on everything that I've heard, upachara samadhi seems to be in the Thai Kuba Ajahns nomenclature, seems to be the essential component where the contemplation of the body will yield fruit. And so at the end of the day, the samadhi is only really necessary in the Buddha's dispensation. There's this nice sutta where it talks about the five fruits of samadhi, calm abiding, arising of sati sampajanya. There is, I forget all of the five, but I can probably bring it up for us and in a few minutes. But yeah, so he describes the five functions of samadhi, but really the one that is the breaking of the asavas is really the main generation of panya is the main thing. So for that, the teachers do say upachara is adequate. I don't know if that answers the question.
Essentially, what you're suggesting is that it is a deeper level of samadhi than upachara samadhi. And
Yes, so it's as I understand it, it's a state of true one-pointedness. Like it's a state where the observer and the observed in the mind sort of collapse into one another. But yeah, it's a deeper state as I understand it.
I think for the time being, that will be enough. Thank you very much.
और तो कोई रिमार्क हो